Hello. Today's topic is The Acrobat. It's a novel by Edward J. Delany. It has to do with Cary Grant. So we're going to talk about actors, and we're going to talk about drugs, LSD actually, and it's a very interesting little novel. It has to do with the LSD therapy that Cary Grant engaged in the 50s and into the early 60s. He was married to someone named Betsy Drake, who they met on a movie called A Girl Should Get Married, or Any Girls Should Want to Get Married, in 1948 or something. So they got married, and it was actually his longest marriage from 1949 to 1962. At any rate, she's the one who actually turned him on to going to this therapist where he took LSD. She stopped acting after they split, so forth, and actually became a therapist herself or something. She had a big, real career out of showbiz after fleeing Hollywood or being done with Hollywood. So the Acrobat actually serves as a kind of a biography of Cary Grant as well. So if you don't know anything about Cary Grant, if you read the novel, you will know a lot more about Cary Grant, even though it's less than 300 pages long. Mr. Delany packs a lot of story, a lot of bio into this brief and entertaining novel. It is about him at a pivotal time in 50s, his age of 50 to 60, when he's become this. His real name is Archibald Leach, and he's from England, and he became an acrobat in his younger years, and that took him on the trail to showbiz. It actually, the book goes through a lot of these showbiz phases of his life, and became this enormous, charismatic movie star that a lot of us remember, and maybe you even heard of if you're a person with, I know I'm one of the older book vloggers. Actually, I'm an authentic baby boomer, and I'm like the more like hippie-oriented variety, anti-war oriented variety. I'm not the stockholder-oriented variety. I'm not a rich baby boomer. I'm in a little room in the East Village here in New York City, and actually, I was quite an enthusiastic acid head, and not only briefly either during my college years. Actually, I didn't have any college years. I dropped out. But actually, I only went for about 2 months and fled hitchhiking out of there and went to Southern Ohio and stayed with another friend and at a place called Rio Grande College. And down there is where I first had LSD in 1970. At the end of April. So this is a very critical time for me. I remember taking it and sitting out it was springtime in Southern Ohio, and we were in the dorm, and then we went outside, and this was Barrel's acid. This was probably what the Sunshine makers made. Nick Sand and I don't remember the other guy's name right now, but Scully. You can see the Sunshine makers to know, have interviews with these guys who made like lots and lots of LSD, and it was quite strong and quite good. So I was out on the out in the campus there of this little college, and I could see the trees in the distance kind of oozing with the environment, and everything seemed very connected. The air seemed real, a substance. The trees in the distance seemed connected to that substance. I seemed connected to it. It was all kind of a real connection to my environment is what LSD showed me. And actually, it pretty much set up a kind of psychological view of what things are really about. In my young years, when I was 18 years old, so now you can calculate that on your own, since it was spring of 1970. So I was from the let's take acid and have fun, let's go to the concerts, let's go see The Who or whatever. I didn't see The Who. My friends took acid and went and saw The Who. But I'm from the variety of street acid, the party stuff. You take it and have fun and also get this deep insight with the bargain. I have had bad trips. In the early 70s, I had a really difficult trip because I took some at a party when I was really drunk and almost passing out on the way home while I was getting off on this LSD, and then I was paranoid for the rest of the evening. Don't get drunk and take acid, or don't drink, period. That was a pointed point. So it's not like something I just did back in the day, because the last time I took acid was actually about a year ago. I don't have any right now, but I was going to go to Mexico, and I had some that a friend of mine gave me had sent to me from California. So I was going to give that to a friend of mine because I was kind of moving out of New York, thinking I was moving to Mexico, which didn't work out because here I am back in New York. But before I gave the guy the acid and before I left on this trip, I had an acid trip. I took the most recent acid trip. So it was, I like it. All right. So now in 2023, and for the past few years, there's been a great deal of revival in LSD with the Michael Pollan book about plants and the series based on, what is it called? How to Change Your Mind. There's a Netflix series that Michael Pollan produced and is on talking about various psychedelic substances. So there is a LSD episode, but what is happening now is a great deal of revival about LSD with younger generations, the 50-year-olds and younger, and microdosing, taking a little bit, not a lot, to like trip, and using it for more therapeutic kind of health properties, which it definitely has. So it is actually a throwback to before it was banned, and more like the time of this in the novel about LSD and Cary Grant in the 50s, when a lot of other Hollywood stars, Esther Williams is also mentioned as using it in the book. In a way, I was thinking about this in drugs, and LSD is not really a drug like the other drugs. You don't really get hooked on LSD or other psychedelics, mushrooms, whatever. It's not something you want to take ultra frequently. It's something you take occasionally. So the book refers to a time when it was not banned yet, and it was being used therapeutically. It was, of course, discovered in the 40s by Albert Hoffman, a Swiss man who took a famous bicycle trip, and while he's riding home on his bicycle, he really got off on LSD. So there's this bicycle day that celebrates the day that he accidentally took the acid for the first time and had this amazing experience that led to what all of us have done since. Of course, it went wacky in that the MK Ultra with the CIA got all interested in it and wanted to use it for mind control, and of course they failed, but in the process of doing so, they happened to turn on basically a generation through some artists that they gave it to in some of these studies, plus harming a whole lot of people who they dosed unbeknownst to themselves. So the book is about a middle-aged man who's trying to discover who he really is and contemplating what his life has been about, and how he got to be this crazy thing. I mean, he was this enormous movie star. Actually, I even asked Cary Grant myself about LSD because in the 80s, in 1984, he did a national tour of theaters where he would show clips from his films, and he would talk about how movie acting was done. I remember him sitting there on a chair with a glass of water, and he would say, well, in the scene, I just take a sip of the glass of water and I put it down. Okay. But he had to remember, he sort of talked about how film acting is not as unnatural because you have to watch about how you put the glass down so it doesn't go clank, and how the reflections and so forth. And anyway, it was an interesting presentation, and there was a Q&A afterwards. This was at the Proctor's Theater in Schenectady, New York, and I will include the article. Maybe I'll show it on the screen behind me if I get energetic enough that I feel like using the green screen for this one. So I asked him about LSD. I was up in the balcony, and there was a Q&A afterwards, and I said, we hear about this LSD thing of yours, and what's the deal? And he acknowledged that yes, he had this LSD therapy, and that he it was a really interesting time in his life, and he learned a lot from it, and he was quite still positive as this 80-year-old man about the benefits of using LSD for therapeutic means. So it's quite an interesting novel, and it's a novel of a middle-aged or into old age man discovering his life and about himself. And I recommend The Acrobat. I think it came out 2022 or 21, I think, no, 22 last year. I don't have the book with me. I think I can put an image of it where I shot the picture of it in the Tompkins Square Library because it was a library book that I read. I don't collect a lot of books myself. I have very few books. But The Acrobat by Edward J. Delany is a book I would recommend if you're interested in movie stars. Oh, another thing I wanted to say about the drugs in the 50s. I think he was lucky in a way that it turned out that way. I mean, a lot of them got in deep trouble with meth, basically, with this guy, Dr. Jacobson, the Dr. Feelgood that was in New York City, who came up with this injection that he would give a lot of actors and a lot of people. Alan J. Lerner, who wrote My Fair Lady, big Broadway songwriter, Broadway shows. He ended up being seriously addicted to meth because of Dr. Jacobson's treatments. I mean, it must have been wonderful stuff. You know, he told them it was vitamins and so forth, but it was actually, speed. Tallulah Bankhead. There's a documentary about Tallulah Bankhead where they talk about this at the end, where she ended up also getting tangled up with Dr. Jacobson. Robert Cummings was also an early TV and movie star. Both, actually, Robert Cummings and Cary Grant were in Alfred Hitchcock movies. Oh, in the book, he's shooting, he has 2 movies coming out, Cary Grant, North by Northwest, and Operation Petticoat. Operation Petticoat, I saw at the drive-in with my parents, way back then. It's stupid comedy with Cary Grant and Tony Curtis. So, in the book, he has an interview on the set of Operation Petticoat with this journalist. And off the record, he tells him about the LSD therapy he's doing. So the tension in the book, the drama in the book is the journalist exposes this in an article, and then Cary, worried about his career, denies it. Says, I didn't even meet this guy. I don't know. Of course, he had proof. He had pictures of him and recordings, whatever. So it was all, because Cary was concerned, and the studios and all that were concerned that it was going to destroy his career if he's exposed as this drug addict. So it ended up that he did have to make a deal with this journalist, and the whole thing was exposed. And actually, there was articles in Life magazine about LSD. Claire Booth Luce was also someone that used LSD, who was part of the Life magazine, Time Life magazine world. So that's the drama of the story. And is Cary going to be in trouble because he's talked about this and going to trash his career because of the public finding out about this? But that's not the way it worked out at all. He was impervious to such things and lived to tell the tale. So the Acrobat, I would say go ahead and read it if you want to. And it's a good book. Other things about LSD that are interesting would be, what is it called? Martin Lee's acid book, which talks about the MK Ultra connection and all that horror that went on with these CIA people using it as, a tool and a weapon, and trying to control people and trying to create a robotic assassin with drugs and, this kind of crap that they do. But, so, the Acrobat.